When I ask you, what makes men and women different, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Well, one of the more obvious answers is they look different. What do I mean by that? Well, males have a penis on the outside and women don't, right? And while that is correct, there's a little bit more to that answer. Sure, males and females differ on the outside, but what about on the inside? In this lesson, you will learn about what internal structures make a male different from a female. First, I want to address the purpose of these uniquely male structures. Why do males have testes and other structures that aren't present in females? Well, one of the instinctual drives in all species is to reproduce, to pass on their genes to future generations. To do this, they have to have a way of packaging, storing, and passing on their DNA to those offspring. They do this by producing cells called gametes, haploid germ cells of males and females. Gametes are produced during meiosis and contain half of the parental chromosome. Now, each gender is going to produce its own gamete with only half of its genetic material. In females, they are called eggs, and in males, they are called sperm. During reproduction, the male gamete combines with the female gamete to produce offspring that has half the DNA of the mom and half the DNA of the dad, giving it its own unique and complete set of DNA. In this lesson, we will focus on the male and the structures used in getting his gamete, sperm, ready for reproduction. The sperm of the male is produced and transported in structures completely different from those found in the female. So, what are these structures? Well, first and foremost, we have the testes, or testis, singular. The testes are paired structures in the male whose function is to produce sperm. Inside each testicle are many tube-like structures where sperm are produced. Once ready, sperm are transported to ducts at the top of the testes that connect to the next structure called the epididymis. Now, sperm production is just the first step. The sperm that leave the testes are not yet fully mature. They're almost there, but not fully. That is the function of the next structure called the epididymis. The epididymis is located on top of each testicle and has two main functions: to store and to mature sperm. Amazingly, the epididymis is a coiled tubule that, if unwound, would measure about 23 feet. This 23 feet of coiled tube can be divided into three parts: the head, the body, and the tail. The head of the epididymis is closest to the top of the testes and accepts the immature sperm that is leaving the testes. Once inside the epididymis, the sperm maturation process starts. This process takes about 2 weeks as sperm move from the head down through the body and into the tail where they are stored until needed. Now, as you look at the epididymis, you will notice that both the testes and the epididymis lie outside the main body cavity of the male. Therefore, they need some way to stay connected with the body. This is where our next structure comes in. Each epididymis connects to a larger tube called the ductus deferens, also known as the vas deferens, which travels from the epididymis up into the body of the male. Now, running alongside the ductus deferens are arteries and veins, and together these make up paired structures called spermatic cords.
Now let's study the internal sex organs of the female reproductive system. The internal sex organs consist of the vagina and the cervical canal, two fallopian tubes, the central uterus, and a pair of ovaries. Let's first talk about the vagina and the cervical canal. The vagina is a fibromuscular canal which is 10 centimeters long. It is lined by non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. The vagina provides a path for menstrual blood and fetus to leave the body. The vaginal mucous glands provide lubrication. It also receives the male sex organs and the sperms. The cervix is the lower cylindrical part of the uterus. It is lined by columnar cells. It also contains numerous mucous glands which help in production of mucus for lubrication. The cervix prepares the sperms for fertilization and also dilates several folds during the childbirth. Now let's talk about the fallopian tubes. Each fallopian tube is a 10 cm long hollow organ which is made up of 4 parts. The infundibulum is the lateral end of the fallopian tube to which numerous finger-shaped projections known as the fimbriae are attached. The fimbriae pick up the oocyte once it is released from the ovary. The ampulla is the central dilated part of the fallopian tube and it is the most common site for the fertilization. The medial end of the fallopian tube is the isthmus which connects the tube to the uterus. Now let's study about the uterus. The uterus is also known as the womb or the childbearing organ. The fertilized egg implants in the uterus and through a series of changes grows into a fetus. The uterus is 7.5 cm long, 5 cm broad and 2.5 cm thick. It is made up of the following parts: the fundus, body, the cavity of the uterus which is lined by mucous membrane, and cornu or the corners of the uterus to which fallopian tubes are attached. Let's have a brief look about the walls of the uterus. The wall of the uterus is made up of three layers: perimetrium, myometrium and the inner endometrium. Perimetrium is a thin layer of epithelial cells that covers the uterus from outside. It is the visceral peritoneum of the uterus. The myometrium is the central thickest layer made up of smooth muscle cells. It has a very important role in childbirth as it undergoes a series of contractions and relaxations which propels the fetus outside. It is main site for development of fibroids and adenomyosis. Endometrium is the innermost and most active layer of the uterus. It undergoes a series of changes throughout the month under the influence of hormones, estrogen and progesterone. It is the site for development of endometrial hyperplasia and cancer. The ovary is the main reproductive organ which is 4 into 3 into 2 cm in dimension. The ovary has two main functions. First, it produces the female eggs, also known as oocytes. Second, it also produces the female reproductive hormones, the estrogen and progesterone. Looking at the cross-section of the ovary, it is made up of the central medulla and the outer part known as the cortex. The medulla consists of the dense connective tissue. It also contains all the blood vessels, nerves and the lymphatics. The cortex consists of numerous ovarian follicles in various stages of development. These ovarian follicles secrete estrogen. When an ovarian follicle matures and releases a female egg,
we are going to look at two very crucial and highly specialized cells, egg and sperm cells. These lead to each and every one of us being here, hence they are so very crucial. The female sex cells are known as the ova or egg cells, or ovum for one. The male sex cells are known as sperm cells. Both of these sex cells are known as gametes. Gametes are an organism's reproductive cells. They have half the genetic information that all of our other body cells have, and so are known as haploid. Humans have 23 chromosomes, and most of the cells in our body have 2 of each. So 23 pairs of chromosomes make 46 in total, one from our mother and one from our father. However, gametes, so the sperm or egg cells, only have 1 of each, and which one, whether it is from the mother or the father, is random. This means that each of our gametes can be different from each other, depending on the mix of chromosomes. Although the egg cell and sperm cell have this very important similarity of only 23 chromosomes, they are very different cells to look at. First off, they are hugely different in size. A human egg cell is spherical in shape and around 130 micrometers in diameter. That's 0.13 millimeters. Not very large, but what size do you think a sperm cell is? Have a look at this egg cell being fertilized and you can see the difference in size. As you can see, there is a lot of sperm. And ejaculation varies but contains at least 20 million sperm per milliliter. That's a lot. In comparison, on average, a woman releases just 1 egg per month. The reason there are so many sperm is to increase the chances of fertilization. When one sperm reaches their egg cell and their nuclei fuse, this gives 2 of each of the 23 chromosomes. and so makes up the 23 pairs and 46 chromosomes in total. The egg cell is large because it goes on to become a new person, and so is packed full of cell organelles, which allow it to create new energy and parts. The sperm, on the other hand, only passes on its nucleus. Let's take a look at what is special about sperm. The head is full of the cell parts that produce energy and also the nucleus. The sperm needs lots of energy to get moving. As you can see, there is a tail that it uses to swim to the egg cell. The sperm has a long journey, while the egg cell doesn't move. You can also see the cap right at the top of the sperm. That's called the acrosome and contains special enzymes. These enzymes are used to break through the protein coating that is around each egg cell. Because this protein varies from species to species, this egg prevents cells from being fertilized by sperm from another species. From this video, you should now know the difference between an egg and a sperm cell. The egg is much bigger, does not move, and contains organelles needed for the fertilized egg to develop into an embryo and onto a new human. Sperm cells are much smaller and motile, and there are millions of them. They only pass on their nucleus and so are able to be small. And most importantly, you should now know that gametes, so the egg and sperm cells, only contain 23 chromosomes each. This is known as haploid. When the egg is fertilized by a sperm cell, the 23 chromosomes from each pair up, giving the normal diploid amount of 23 pairs of 46 chromosomes.